My name is Sam Carter. I was a man with a singular obsession. It was an idea that consumed my every waking moment. I wanted to travel through time, not for fame, not for fortune. I simply wanted to understand the universe's greatest mystery. I believed that time was not a straight line. It was a fabric. It could be bent. It could be folded. I dedicated my entire life to this belief. My colleagues thought I was chasing a fantasy. They called my work a dead end. But I knew, deep in my soul, that I was on the verge of something extraordinary. I was building a machine that would prove them all wrong. I called it the loop engine. The name came from the idea that time could loop back on itself. My machine was not a sleek, polished vessel from a science fiction movie. It was a chaotic assembly of wires, humming capacitors, and glowing vacuum tubes. It filled my entire garage. The air around it crackled with energy. Every piece was hand-soldered. Every calculation was triple-checked. It was my life's work made physical. The loop engine was designed to create a small, stable wormhole, a tiny tear in space-time, just big enough to send a single particle a few seconds into the past. That was the goal. A modest, yet revolutionary first step. The machine was my world. I spent more time in my garage than I did with my own family. My daughter, Sarah, would bring me sandwiches. She would watch me work, her eyes full of curiosity. My wife, Emily, worried about me. She saw the long hours and the toll they were taking. But she also supported my dream. She knew what it meant to me. This project was more than just science. It was my legacy. It was the culmination of a promise I made to myself as a boy, staring up at the stars. I promised I would one day touch the face of time itself. On that final evening, everything felt different. The air was thick with anticipation. The machine hummed with a new kind of energy. It seemed alive. I had made a breakthrough in the power flow equations. I believed this was it, the night I would finally succeed. I ran the final diagnostic checks. All systems were green. The energy readings were stable. The magnetic containment field was holding strong. I was ready to initiate the first test sequence. I was about to send a single atom of hydrogen 1 second into the past. I was about to rewrite the history of science. I had no idea I was about to rewrite my own. The final moments before the test were quiet. Only the low hum of the machine filled the garage. I stood at the control console, my hand hovering over the activation key. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was the culmination of decades of work, years of sacrifice, and ridicule. It all came down to this single moment. I took a deep breath. I was ready to turn the key. I was ready to make history. The world outside my garage seemed to fade away. There was only me, the machine, and the precipice of a new reality. I was so focused, I didn't notice the small shadow moving in the corner. My cat, a black creature named Blackjack, was a constant companion in my lab. He was curious and often mischievous. Usually he would sleep peacefully on a pile of old schematics. But tonight, the strange energy from the machine had made him restless. He leaped silently onto a stack of books near the main power conduit. I was completely unaware. My eyes were locked on the console's primary display. The numbers were perfect. The energy flow was exactly where it needed to be. My fingers brushed against the cool metal of the key. I was just about to turn it. Then, it happened. Blackjack, startled by a sudden spark from a nearby capacitor, lost his footing. He tumbled from the books. He fell directly onto the emergency power surge regulator. This was a manual lever I had installed as a failsafe. It was never meant to be used during an active sequence. His small weight was just enough to slam the lever down. It bypassed all the safety protocols. It diverted the entire power grid's output directly into the machine's core. The low hum instantly became a deafening roar. Alarms blared. The lights in the garage flickered and then exploded in a shower of sparks. The world dissolved into a blinding white light. I felt a force unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was not a push or a pull. It was a tearing sensation. I felt as if every atom in my body was being ripped apart and put back together again. The roar of the machine became an all-encompassing silence. I saw colors that have no names. I felt the passage of time not as a sequence, but as a single crushing weight. I was no longer in my garage. I was no longer anywhere. I was adrift in the storm I had created. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. There was only darkness. I awoke to a profound silence. The smell of ozone and burnt electronics was gone. Instead, the air was sterile. It was clean in a way that felt unnatural. I was lying on a surface that was soft, yet firm. It molded perfectly to my body. I opened my eyes. The ceiling above me was not wood and plaster. It was a smooth, white surface that emitted a gentle, sourceless light. Panic began to set in. This was not my garage. This was not a hospital I recognized. I sat up, my head pounding. The room was circular. It was completely empty except for the bed I was on. The wall in front of me shimmered. It became transparent. I stared out at a scene that my mind struggled to comprehend. Towering buildings pierced the clouds. They were made of materials I had never seen. They gleamed and shifted in the sunlight. Vehicles without wheels glided silently through the air between them. The sky was a strange shade of violet. I was looking at a city, but it was not any city from my time. It was a city from a dream, or a nightmare. I stumbled to the transparent wall, pressing my hands against its cool surface. Where was I? What had happened? A voice spoke. It was calm and disembodied. It seemed to come from the air itself. Subject 47 is awake. Vital signs are stabilizing. My blood ran cold. Subject 47. I was not a person here. I was a subject, a specimen. A door I hadn't noticed slid open with a soft hiss. Two figures entered. They wore simple silver uniforms. Their faces were impassive. They moved with a strange, rehearsed grace. They did not look at me with curiosity or concern. They looked at me with the detached interest of a biologist examining a new species of insect. They began their examination without a word. They used devices that scanned my body with beams of light. They took samples. They spoke to each other in short, clipped sentences. I tried to ask them questions. Where am I? What year is this? They ignored me. It was as if I was not even speaking. I was an object, a fascinating relic from a bygone era. They were scientists, I realized, but their science had no room for humanity. In their eyes, I was not Sam Carter, the man who built a time machine. I was an anomaly, an unexpected piece of data that had inexplicably appeared in their laboratory. Days turned into weeks, or perhaps it was only hours. Time in my white room was meaningless. The scientists, whom I learned were part of the Temporal Anomalies Division, eventually began to communicate. They confirmed my worst fears. The date was January 6, 2126. Blackjack's clumsy fall had not sent me seconds into the past. It had thrown me exactly 100 years into the future. My machine, my loop engine, had not created a small loop. It had created a chasm I had fallen through. They told me I was a historical miracle, the first and only human to travel through time. They treated me not as a person, but as a living artifact. They studied me endlessly. They analyzed my language, my biology, my memories. To them, I was a window into a primitive past. They showed me historical records of my own time. It was like watching a ghost story. I saw footage of the search for the vanished scientist, Sam Carter. I saw my face on news reports. The mystery of my disappearance became a brief, unsolved curiosity in a world that quickly moved on. The world I knew, the life I had, was now just a chapter in a history book. A footnote. The lead scientist, a cold woman named Dr. Eris, decided an experiment was needed. She wanted to gauge my emotional response to historical stimuli. She told me they had found something, a data capsule from the early 21st century. It was a message addressed to the future. It was from my family. They had left it in the hopes that somehow, someday, it might be found. They hoped it might explain what happened to me. Dr. Eris played the message for me. She watched me with her detached, analytical gaze. She wanted to see how the artifact would react. The message began. An image of my wife, Emily, appeared on a floating screen. She looked older. Her face was lined with a grief I had caused. "Sam," she said, her voice trembling, "if you are seeing this, I don't know how. We never found you. The machine was destroyed. You just vanished." Then my daughter, Sarah, appeared. She was a grown woman now, a woman I had never met. "Dad," she said, tears streaming down her face, "we missed you. I missed you. I just hope you found what you were looking for." The message ended. The screen went dark, and in the sterile white room, a century away from home, I finally broke. The message shattered me. The clinical detachment of my observers meant nothing. The futuristic world around me faded away. All I could feel was the crushing weight of loss. I had not just lost my time, I had lost my life. I had missed my daughter growing up. I had left my wife to face a world without me. My grand ambition, my quest to understand time, had cost me everything that truly mattered. The grief was a physical thing. It was a hollow ache in my chest that never went away. I was a ghost haunting a future that was not my own. Isolation became my new prison. The scientists saw my grief as a complication, a variable that interfered with their data. I refused to cooperate. I stopped eating. I stopped speaking. I was a broken man from a forgotten time. I had no purpose here. My existence was a mistake, an error in the cosmic equation. I would sit for hours, staring at the smooth white walls, replaying my daughter's words in my mind. I just hope you found what you were looking for. I had found nothing. I had only found an empty, sterile future and an ocean of regret. I was completely and utterly alone. It was during this dark period that I met her. Her name was Lena. She was not one of the cold, senior scientists. She was a junior technician. Her job was to bring me my meals and monitor my basic health. Unlike the others, she did not look at me like a specimen. She looked at me with something I'd not seen in this new world. She looked at me with compassion. She would linger after dropping off my food. She started asking me simple questions. She asked about my home. She asked about my family. She asked about the sun, the real sun, not the filtered light of the city. Lena became my only link to humanity. She saw the man, not the anomaly. She would sneak in old books for me to read, paper books that were now museum pieces. She described the world outside my room. She told me about art and music. She told me about her own life, her own dreams. She was fascinated by my stories of the past, a world with forests and oceans and seasons. A world she had only ever read about. Slowly, painstakingly, she pulled me back from the edge. She gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. She was a small spark of warmth in a cold, indifferent future. My bond with Lena grew stronger every day. In her, I found not just a friend, but a kindred spirit. She was as trapped by her time as I was by mine. She dreamed of a past she never knew, a world with more nature and less technology, and I, in turn, found a new reason to live in a future I never chose. The feelings I developed for her were complex. They were tangled with the love I still held for Emily, a love that was now a century old. But Lena was real. She was here. With her, the sharp edges of my grief began to soften. I started to see a future for myself again, not just a future I was stuck in, but the past is a powerful anchor. The longing for my old life never truly disappeared. I wanted to see my daughter's face for real, not as a tearful image on a screen. I wanted to undo the pain I had caused. The idea began as a whisper, a dangerous, seductive thought. What if I could go back? The scientists here believed my machine was a crude, unpredictable device. A one-time accident. But I knew better. I knew its principles. I knew its design. I was its creator. The thought took root. I could rebuild it. I could fix my mistake. I began to work in secret. During my recreational data sessions, I would divert computing power. I would run simulations based on my memory of the loop engine's design. I used my knowledge of primitive 21st century physics, which was a blind spot for the future scientists. They were so advanced, they had forgotten the fundamentals I knew by heart. I started to subtly acquire components. A capacitor here, a power converter there. Lena helped me, thinking I was just building harmless gadgets to pass the time. She had no idea I was building a machine to escape. My plan was not just to go back. I wanted to take Lena with me. I described my time to her. The green trees, the blue sky, the feeling of rain on your skin. I promised her a world she had only dreamed of. The idea terrified her, but it also captivated her. The thought of leaving this sterile, controlled world for one that was wild and real was a powerful lure. The machine was almost complete. It was hidden in a maintenance shaft behind my room. It was smaller, more refined. I was sure it would work. I was sure I could correct my life. I was about to make a terrible mistake. The night of our escape arrived. Lena stood beside me, her face pale with a mixture of fear and excitement. The new loop engine hummed softly in the narrow maintenance shaft. "Sam, are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "The records say your first jump was an accident, that it was unstable." I placed a hand on her shoulder. "This time is different," I promised her. I know what I'm doing. We're going home." I did not see the doubt in her eyes. I only saw the future I wanted. A future that was my past. I initiated the sequence. The jump was violent. The world did not dissolve into white light. It fractured. We were not moving through time. We were trapped between it. Images flashed before my eyes. My garage. The futuristic city. Emily's face. Lena's face. They all blurred into a chaotic storm of moments. We were caught in a temporal paradox, a place that was not a place, a time that was not a time. Then, a figure solidified in the swirling chaos. It was me, but older. His face was etched with a profound weariness. He looked at me not with anger, but with immense sadness. "You have to stop, Sam," he said, his voice echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "You can't change what happened?" my older self continued. "I tried. I've tried 1,000 times. Every time you try to fix the past, you only make it worse. You create echoes, fractures. This is my warning to you, the warning I never received." He explained the horrifying truth. Time does not like to be corrected. When I tried to return to my original timeline, the universe's response was not to erase my mistake. It was to duplicate me, to create another version of Sam Carter, leaving the original life I had to continue without me. The message from my family was not for me. It was for a world where I was simply gone. His words hit me with the force of a physical blow. The machine sputtered. The energy field collapsed. I was thrown back, but not to the past I craved. I landed back in my own garage. The air smelled of ozone. The alarms were blaring. But standing across the room, by the now smoking machine, was another me. A younger me, just moments before his own accidental jump. I had not gone back. I had been duplicated. I was now the ghost, the echo. I watched as my other self vanished in a flash of white light, destined to live the life of isolation I had just escaped. Lena was gone, thrown somewhere else in the chaos of time. I was alone, a second version of myself in a world that already had one. My quest to control time was over. I had learned the final brutal lesson. Time cannot be tamed. My new purpose was clear. I had to live with the consequences and build a new life, not as a man who lost his past, but as a man who was given a second, unexpected future. The laboratory was cold. It always felt cold now. Dr. Eris Thorne stepped through the shimmering portal, the air crackling with residual energy from his journey. The hum of the temporal displacement unit was a constant lonely sound in the vast sterile room. He was a ghost in his own life, a visitor to a present he no longer recognized. He had made a mistake, a terrible, selfish mistake. He had jumped back just a few moments to prevent an accident, to save her, but in doing so, he had fractured everything. Now, the world was slightly wrong. The colors were muted, the silence was heavier, and Lena was gone. He searched for her in the data streams, in the flickering monitors, in the very fabric of this altered reality, but found only emptiness. He moved through the lab like a shadow, his fingers tracing the cool metal of consoles that held the secrets of his failure. Each button, each screen, was a reminder of his arrogance. He had believed he could command time, bend it to his will to protect the one thing that mattered. He remembered Lena's laugh, a sound that used to fill this very room with warmth and light. Now the memory was a painful echo, a phantom limb of a life he had amputated himself. He had tried to hold on to love so tightly that he had crushed it, scattering its pieces across 1,000 broken timelines. He was alone, surrounded by the powerful machines that had promised him everything, but had only delivered loss. His reflection in the dark glass of a monitor was that of a stranger. The man staring back had tired eyes, lines of grief etched around them that were not there before. He had sacrificed his own peace for a desperate gamble and lost. The quiet of the lab was not peaceful. It was the suffocating quiet of absence. He ran simulations, endless calculations, trying to find the exact point of divergence, the precise moment where he could intervene again and set things right. But every equation led to more paradoxes, more potential fractures. It was like trying to mend a shattered vase with trembling hands, each touch creating new cracks, making the damage worse. He was trapped in a loop of his own making, forever returning to the scene of his greatest regret. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, a physical burden that made his shoulders ache. He had thought he was being heroic, a savior. But heroism, he was learning, was not about changing the past. It was about facing the present, no matter how painful it was. He had run from pain, and in doing so, he had invited a deeper, more permanent sorrow into his life. The search for Lena was no longer just about finding her. It was about finding a way to forgive himself. He had to undo what he had done, not for her, not anymore, but for the stability of the world he had so carelessly broken. The first step, he knew, was to understand the full extent of the damage he had caused. One evening, while calibrating the temporal sensors, an anomaly appeared. It was not a violent tear in space-time, but a gentle shimmer, like heat rising from a road. From the light, a man stepped out. He looked exactly like Eris. He wore the same lab coat, had the same tired eyes, but there was a stillness about him, a quiet acceptance that Eris did not possess. This other Eris did not look surprised. He simply looked at the lab, then at the man before him, and nodded slowly. "You are the one who jumped," he said. His voice was calm, not an accusation, but a simple statement of fact. It was the voice of a man who had lived with the consequences of a choice. Eris stared, his mind struggling to comprehend. This was him. This was the version of himself from the original unbroken timeline. The man who had lived through the accident. The man who had lost Lena, but had not tried to cheat fate to get her back. "You stayed," Eris whispered, the words feeling heavy and strange in his mouth. The other Eris, the one who belonged here, walked over to a console, his movements familiar and sure. "I stayed," he confirmed. "I grieved. I learned to live with the silence. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, but I did not break the world to avoid the pain." He looked at Eris, his expression not of anger, but of a deep, profound sadness for the man he could have become. The two men, identical, yet worlds apart, stood in the quiet laboratory, a living paradox. The Eris who stayed began to explain the damage. He pointed to subtle energy fluctuations, to temporal echoes that were causing instability across the planet. Small things, at first. Objects disappearing. Memories shifting. But the fractures were growing, threatening to unravel the very structure of their reality. "You thought you were saving her," the other Eris said gently. "But you were only trying to save yourself from the pain of losing her. Love is not a thing you can lock in a box and keep safe. It must be allowed to be what it is, even when it ends." Eris listened, the truth of the words washing over him. He saw the strength in the man before him, a strength forged in loss and acceptance. This other self had not been weaker for letting go. He had become stronger. He had honored Lena's memory by enduring, by continuing to live, by protecting the world they had both loved. The Eris who had jumped, the traveler, felt a surge of shame, but also a flicker of understanding. He had been so focused on what he had lost that he never considered what was at stake. He saw now that his desperate act was not born of love, but of fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of a future without her light. Working together, the two versions of Eris began the delicate process of mending time. The Eris who stayed understood the original timeline, its natural flow and rhythm. The Eris who jumped understood the mechanics of the paradox, the unnatural signature of his own interference. They became two halves of a single mind, their knowledge combining to form a complete picture of the problem. They spent days, then weeks, hunched over holographic interfaces, writing complex algorithms to gently coax the fractured timelines back into alignment. It was agonizingly slow work, like performing surgery on a soul. Every small adjustment sent ripples through reality, and they had to be careful not to cause more harm. The emotional toll was immense. For the traveling Aris, every line of code was an admission of his failure. It was the act of erasing the very hope that had driven him for so long. He was not bringing Lena back. He was ensuring she remained gone, cementing her loss in the history of the world. He would see her face in the shimmering data streams, a ghost in the machine, and his hands would falter. He was actively working to destroy his own desperate dream. The pain was sharp and constant, a blade twisting in his heart with every successful calculation that brought the timeline closer to its original, painful state. He was unmaking his own selfish miracle. The Aris who stayed acted as an anchor. He had already processed his grief, turning it into a quiet resolve. He would place a steadying hand on his other self's shoulder when the pain became too much. He shared memories of Lena, not the frantic, desperate memories of her final moments, but the happy ones. He spoke of her kindness, her intellect, her terrible singing voice when she thought no one was listening. He reminded the traveler of the woman she was, not the symbol of loss she had become. "We honor her by fixing this," he would say, his voice a calm certainty in the storm of Eris's regret. "We save the world she loved. That is how we keep her memory alive." As they worked, the world outside began to heal. The muted colors brightened. The strange silences were filled with the normal sounds of a living city once more. The temporal echoes faded. With each repaired fracture, the traveling Eris felt a piece of himself fading too. He was an anomaly, a being who did not belong in this corrected reality. The closer they came to success, the more transparent he felt, his own existence becoming unstable. He knew that to truly fix the timeline, one of them would have to disappear. And it would have to be him, the one who had caused the break in the first place. The final step of the repair would be his own erasure. In the final hours, as the last algorithm was ready to be initiated, a soft light filled the laboratory. It was not the harsh energy of the time portal, but a warm, gentle glow. A figure took shape within it, and Aris's breath caught in his throat. It was Lena. She was not solid, more like a memory-given form, an echo from the timeline he had tried so desperately to save. She looked at him, her expression not of sadness or pity, but of deep knowing love. She was not there to be rescued. She was there to help him understand. "You came back for me," she said, her voice a soft melody. "But I was never truly lost." She turned her gaze to the Eris who had stayed, a look of profound affection in her eyes. "You honored me," she told him. "You carried our love forward. You did not let grief destroy you. You let it change you." Then she looked back at the traveler. "Waiting for someone is not about hope that they will return," she explained, her form shimmering. "It is about understanding why they cannot. Love is not about holding on so tightly that you break reality. It is about choosing to be where you belong, even when it hurts. It is about accepting the time you were given, and making it mean something." Her words were not a goodbye, but a lesson. The traveling Eris finally understood. His journey had not been about love for Lena, but about his inability to accept loss. True love was what the other Eris had shown, the strength to endure, to protect, to let go. He looked at his other self, the man who had borne the pain he had run from, and saw not a rival, but a brother. He saw the man he was supposed to be. To restore balance, he had to give this world back to him. He had to choose to let go, not just of Lena, but of his own selfish desire to rewrite the story. He walked to the console, his movements now steady and sure. He initiated the final sequence. The portal behind him hummed to life, not to transport him, but to unravel his paradoxical existence, reabsorbing the energy he had stolen from the timeline. He felt himself becoming light, the pain and regret dissolving into a feeling of peace. He was not dying, he was becoming part of the balance again. He was giving back the time he had taken. His last act was a gift of stability, a final, true act of love for the world Lena had inhabited. As he faded, he saw his other self, the man who stayed, watching him with gratitude. He was finally going home, not to a place in time, but to a state of acceptance. And in that, there was hope. And there was closure. Years later, I wrote a message. Not to the past, not to the future, to no one. I sealed it inside the engine. Just in case. If you find this, don't build the machine. Love doesn't survive being chased through time. It survives by being lived once. And for the first time in my life, I stayed. I thought staying would fix everything. That was my last mistake. The first sign was the dreams. Not memories, not nightmares, overlaps. I would wake up knowing things I had never lived, conversations with people I had never met. Regrets that didn't belong to this version of me. Time was stable, but I wasn't. 3 months after shutting the machine down, the city began to change, subtly at first. A building that hadn't existed the day before, a street name altered overnight, news reports correcting themselves mid-sentence. People didn't notice, but I did, because I could feel the corrections like pressure behind my eyes. Time wasn't broken, it was rewriting itself around a scar, and that scar was me. The Institute came quietly. No drones, no weapons, just questions. They called themselves the Temporal Continuity Division. To them, I was a paradox with a pulse. You're not moving through time anymore. You're anchoring distortions. I asked the question I'd been afraid to ask. Am I dangerous? Yes, but not intentionally. They showed me something that, honestly, made my blood run cold. Children, teenagers, adults, people who remembered things that never happened. A woman who missed a husband she never married. A man grieving a daughter who was never born. A child who drew machines he couldn't possibly understand. All connected, all pointing back to my disappearance. Time hadn't erased the fractures, it had just buried them in people. And then they showed me her. Lena. Not the one I loved. This Lena was different. Born earlier. Raised differently. No memory of me. But her brain scans showed something impossible. She was experiencing echoes. Dreams of another life. Another Sam. She woke up crying for a man she'd never met. I left the Institute shaking. I had saved time. But somehow, I had poisoned reality.
That night, Black stared at me differently. Cats were never supposed to understand time. But Black had touched the engine. And time had touched him back. He followed me into the basement, where the dead machine still sat. I hadn't powered it on. I hadn't even touched it. But it was humming, low, hungry. The message inside the engine began to glow. The one I had written to no one. The seal cracked. New words formed. Not in my handwriting. You stayed. Good. Now fix what you left behind. That's when I understood the real conflict. Time wasn't my enemy. Control was. And you know, I had created both versions. I don't know how long I fought him. Time doesn't measure itself here. But in the end, I did the only thing I hadn't tried. I let go. Not of Lena, not of the past, of myself. I shattered my temporal signature, split it across every fracture. I became noise, untraceable, uncontainable. When I woke up, I was no one special. No machine, no institute, no scars in time, just a man in a cafe. Across from me sat a woman, dark hair, familiar eyes. She smiled politely. "Sorry," she said. "Do I know you?" I felt it then. Not memory, not destiny, just possibility. "No," I said softly, "but maybe we could." Outside, a black cat slept in the sun. Time moved forward, unafraid. I told her my name was Sam, just Sam, no titles, no history. She introduced herself as Lena, different Lena. Same voice, the kind of coincidence time pretends is accidental. We talked about nothing important, about everything safe, the weather, the coffee, the strange feeling that the world had recently. Exhaled. She laughed once, briefly, and stopped herself. "I get this feeling sometimes," she said, "like I've already lived moments that haven't happened yet." I nodded. "I think everyone does," I lied. That night, the dreams returned, but they weren't mine anymore. They were global. People across the world began dreaming the same symbols. A machine, a cat, a door that never opened. Artists painted it. Children described it. Physicists whispered about it in equations that didn't belong to this universe. Time was quiet, too quiet, because it wasn't watching me anymore. It was watching itself. The messages began appearing again, not on screens, not on paper, in reflections, on windows, on water, in the dark surface of turned-off phones, short, cold, consistent, observer, not controller, not inventor, witness. I understood then what the thing inside the engine had been. Not a god, not a machine, a process. Time's immune system. It didn't destroy threats, it learned from them. And I had taught it something dangerous, that humans would break reality for love. So it needed someone who had already done it and stopped.
The core returned in fragments, not as a place, as a choice. Every time someone stood at a crossroads, to stay or leave, to forgive or hold on, to chase or accept, I felt it, a pressure, a pause, time asking a question, and waiting. Lena and I grew closer, slowly, painfully, correctly. No grand declarations, no destiny, just presence. One night she asked me, "Do you ever feel like you were supposed to be someone else?" I answered honestly, "Every day." She replied, "Me too," and for the first time, that was enough. The final message came a year later. Not glowing, not urgent, handwritten, in my handwriting, older, calmer. "You did well. You learned the difference between saving and staying. This is the last message. After this, there will be no echoes. One question remains. Do you want to remember?" I closed my eyes. Memory was power. Memory was temptation. Memory was the seed of every fracture. I looked at Lena, asleep beside me, breathing, real, not borrowed from another timeline. I tore the message in half, then quarters, then dust. Time didn't punish me. It didn't reward me either. It simply let me be human. Years passed. Black died quietly in the sun. I cried like someone who had lost a universe. Lena held me. We had a daughter. She liked drawing doors. We never asked why. On my last day, much older now, I sat by a window, watching time do what it does best. Move forward. No loops, no engines, no messages, just moments. I whispered, not to time, not to the past, but to myself. We were never meant to win, only to choose. Somewhere, a machine that was never built stayed imaginary. Somewhere else, a cat jumped on a table and nothing happened. And somewhere in the vast silence of reality, time stopped watching, because it trusted us. The end. Before you leave, I just want to say thank you. If you stayed until the end of this story, it means more than you think. These stories take time, imagination, and heart, and knowing that someone out there is listening makes all the difference. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you feel something, and you'd like to support my work, you can do that on Ko-fi. Your support there helps me keep creating more stories like this, freely, honestly, and with passion. And if you enjoy stories about time, love, and the fragile choices that shape us, consider subscribing to the channel. It's the simplest way to make sure you don't miss the next journey. Thank you to everyone who watches, listens, comments, and Andrew Starkrine, so pop art and breaks. You're not just viewers, you're part of the story. See you in the next moment.